Have you booked guided tours when you travel? So many people love to take tours when they go on trips. And I'm like that too. As a deafblind traveler, I like to have an experience where I'm learning from a guide. However, they're not always accessible. And that's a bummer. I'm going to share in this video some tours that got it right for me. Why were they accessible? And how can other guided tour leaders do the same thing and provide a high quality experience? Because remember, that accessibility is not just good for disabled travelers, it's good for everyone. It makes it more inclusive, more engaging, and more fun for people because people are all different and have different needs. Let's get into it. The first guided tour that I'm so excited to remember because it was awesome is the Tinguely Museum in Basel, Switzerland. Now, full disclosure, I was there on a hosted trip by Accessible Switzerland. So they hooked us up. Me and my partner got a private guided tour from one of the experts at the museum. It was really, really cool. Now, Tinguely was an artist and he did a lot of kind of machine-based art where he would make things that moved, that had motors, that would make noise. They're kind of complicated. What the expert tour guide did for us was he brought out a model that showed the front and the back of kind of like an example of what Tinguely would do in his pieces of things spinning. So you could see the front, okay, that kind of looks like his stuff. And then on the back, they showed you how it worked. And I thought that was such a hands-on, amazing way to learn about the art. Another cool thing is that Tinguely had made these big, big pieces. Like they were called noise machines, and you could turn them on. And one of them you could even walk on. So I had to go up some stairs. It was a little bit treacherous, but walking on art, being in it, is something that was unforgettable to me. I also enjoyed seeing a scale model of the museum and being able to understand from engaging with the scale model that I could touch and I could ask questions about how does this building really look? Because I can't grasp it just seeing bits and pieces as a guest. And I did think scale models are also really cool for everyone, but I have really loved being able to touch them and interact with them and like see them. I think that's an easy thing to do for accessibility. The second guided tour that was accessible and super memorable for me was in Medellín, Colombia. This tour was with Impulse Travel at Tipica Café, Milla de Oro. What was very cool about this was it was a coffee tasting and learning experience. The things that the leader did that were really, really accessible, which is presenting the information in different formats. He was talking to us. He also played a video. So I love that they use multimedia to teach there. He also had a model of a coffee bean that you could take apart because the coffee bean has different layers to it and different parts. And I could touch that. I could interact with it. And it made it real for me. It was big too. So I think that was accessible to help just understand the structure of the coffee bean. Anybody would think that was cool. The other thing that we did after that was smelling coffee bean. Now we were getting into the tasting process. And if you think about what I've already described, they were engaging different senses. They were not just relying on hearing the tour guide talking to you. And the coffee beans was so, so cool. And then, of course, we got to taste. And it's funny because then the ones that I smelled and really liked, they tasted completely different than I thought they would. And so we talked about that. And I learned a lot and had a bunch of fun. That was also a private experience. So anytime that I can book a private experience and it works for my budget, I do try to do that because then you can ask lots of questions and the pacing is so calm because it's just for me and my partner. So I really appreciate that. I think sometimes big group tours are rushed and that's stressful because I take a little more time to navigate a space or to think, even think about questions. Sometimes I just want a moment to talk a little more. The third tour we're going to talk about is the Chocolatarium in Edinburgh, Scotland. The Chocolatarium is a really cool place. It is a storefront. And I made a short form video about my experience there. It's all fun that I had to share about it right when it happened. The Chocolatarium educates you and provides information on the history of chocolate, the growing of chocolate. After that, did an experience where we made our own chocolate. So fun. So you actually see how chocolate is made through the process of making it your own, and you customize your flavor. You're very, very engaged. There's a multi-sensory component to this experience as well. At the end, while you're waiting for your chocolate to get finalized and ready for you to take home, they bring you to another room where you talk about the different types of chocolate and you get to taste. So they have these little discs and you go all around the room and you can try all the chocolate types that you want. So this is another experience where you're listening, there was visual, there was tasting. I'm sure I was smelling stuff when I was making my own chocolate to decide what flavors to include. And it was just really well organized. Now, we did this in a big group of people, but I think the instructor was very conscientious and calm and paid attention to everybody. And that is super important when you're leading a group experience. Fourth guided tour that I want to talk about is when my partner and I went horseback riding in Colombia. We were staying in Salento, which is known for being part of the coffee region. And that's why we were there. We wanted to dig into coffee. But we also enjoy nature. So we did a private horseback ride to a waterfall with Eco Hotel La Cabaña, which is a locally owned sustainable property. So love to support that. And this was a private experience as well, which was already something that I thought would be accessible for me. But I was truly surprised by just the experience of having a horse walk for me somewhere instead of me doing it, what that opened up for me. Because I had never really thought about that logically. It makes sense now. Like when I'm hiking and I'm traveling somewhere in nature, I'm looking down probably 90% of the time, maybe even 100%, because I need to make sure that I'm safe when I'm hiking. But there's so much beauty around that I miss out on unless I stop, pause, scan around, and take it in. But if a horse is walking for me, what do I get from that experience? I get to look at nature and beauty the whole time. And I do have 5% of my vision. So I am able to enjoy vistas and nature and look around. That was incredible for me. I felt so free. I also noticed that we could go so much further because obviously horses are super strong. And I think that the path to the waterfall would have taken us so much longer to do if we were walking it. And it wouldn't have been fun for me to do that. So not only did I increase my access to the nature to take in the beauty, I also increased like the potential that distance that I could cover. The waterfall was lovely. The private experience was so relaxed. Again, we were able to go at our own pace, take breaks. The guide was very, very helpful, knowledgeable with the horses. That's one thing that I'm always scared of. Like, is this person really going to support with the animals? He got it. And it was such an awesome experience. In general, I mentioned a few times, private experiences are more accessible for me. So I have two other private experiences that really, really worked for me. When we went to San Pedro de Atacama in Chile, to the Atacama Desert, which is a wonder, it's incredible. If you're going to Chile, I highly recommend. And I do have content on that. Yes, yes. When we went to the Atacama Desert, we booked private tours with Altiplano Expediciones. And what happened is that we had, I think, 3 days of tours. We had the same guide each time. It was just for me and my partner. The guide got to know my access needs. I had him wear the microphone that connects to my hearing aids every time. This Bluetooth connection is incredible. And it really helps especially when I'm on an all-day experience. Even if it's private, if I didn't have the microphone, I would be working to hear him over the background noise or in the car. So it just really helps reduce the stress and the listening fatigue. So he got to know us, got to kind of understand how I moved. The pacing was really wonderful and got to ask questions. And so that was customized. Another wonderful thing that happened with Altiplano Expediciones is that they brought me hiking poles. They provided the equipment that I needed in order to be able to walk out in nature. Even if an area is flat, I'm going to use hiking poles to walk and stabilize. And also, I use them to kind of stab at things, and I touch the environment around me to identify obstacles. I use them in a little bit of a different way than I use my white cane. My white cane is not the tool to use when I'm out in nature. It's only going to work really in urban settings that have paved surfaces. Equipment that's able to be provided to me is another way that tours can be more accessible. I also really appreciated their WhatsApp communication. Every day, I got information on the weather for the next day and what to bring, and that was very helpful. I think that also made me feel supported, that they were taking care of me, that they wanted us to have the best time possible. And I think that some people might think, oh, travelers don't need that, but you never know. You're the expert if you're the tour guide on the location. And if people are traveling in a car, then why not just have them bring extra things that they might need so that they can have the best experience possible? The other private tour guide that I want to shout out is Roko in Tokyo, in Japan. We did a private tour with Roko. I think it was 6 hours in Tokyo. And ahead of time, she gives you a list of sites that she recommends, and she asks you what your interests are. What is most exciting to you? So that is providing cognitive accessibility support. Also providing a way for you to customize what you're doing, which I really loved. She's not just saying everyone has to do the same tour. She wants to know what you're interested in and keep you engaged. So we did a tour that encompassed going to a food market, eating sushi from right there at one of the stalls. Incredible sushi for us. We also went to a knife store at the market. We saw cherry blossoms, went to a temple. And so I really appreciated that she customizes and asks you these questions and provides the support to help you choose what is going to be fun for you. Another important thing that maybe people don't think about when you're doing an all-day tour is having adequate breaks for food. And Roko provided that for us. We were feeling hungry and tired of walking and thirsty, and we just stopped at a cafe, and then at the end we had dinner. This is kind of like an underrated thing, but that is part of accessibility. Like, food is a need, and having a break is an access need too. The last guided tour I want to talk about is a paella making experience that I did in the Spanish countryside. The first thing that was very helpful was that they provided transportation. We didn't have to figure out how to get there. They provided a central pickup point, and everyone just met there. That was awesome and relieved so much stress. Can you think about it? Remember that anytime that we're navigating, like, I am using energy. So if the tour can reduce the energy demands on me, then I have more energy to enjoy. And so that is a part of accessibility as well. When we got to the location, they provided food and drink right away. That was awesome. Nobody was cranky. Nobody was having a problem then. We were so happy. Yes, right away, eating our snacks and having something to drink. Then when they set up the actual paella making, there were multiple workstations. So you were now broken up into smaller groups. And the instructor was coming around to help you specifically. It was very organized, super clear what to do. They also provided bilingual instruction. The main person leading was a native Spanish speaker. Spanish was his dominant language, but he also had someone translating into English. For me, because I speak both languages, then I was hearing things twice and I was very happy. But that's just another way to provide accessibility to people, being able to provide multiple languages and having that be thought of. Now that we talked about some awesome guided tours and accessibility best practices that any tour guide can implement, I want to have a special section on walking tours. Walking tours are really common. They're a really fun and sometimes low-cost way of enjoying a new place, especially when you do the free walking tours and you give donation. Now, I have had a lot of challenges with walking tours because you really don't know how accessible and inclusive the guide is going to be. For example, in Amsterdam, I was telling a guide what I needed. I said I needed him to face me so I could read his lips. And that's something that really I need. I was holding a white cane and he looked at me and he said, well, how can you read lips? And that was very demoralizing. It was right at the beginning of a tour, especially when I was communicating. He was invalidating what I was asking for. So don't be like him. Create a space for you to understand access needs and then meet them. If you are a tour guide, face the group when you're talking. If you're pointing at something, point, then turn around and give the information. Don't talk where you're pointing. And I think that's something that anyone would get frustrated by. Another thing that's super important is to provide adequate volume of your voice. So some people use microphones and headsets. And for me, what's most helpful is when the tour guide can wear the Bluetooth microphone that connects to my hearing aids. So whatever your system is, make sure that people really can hear you because it's a lot of listening and you're a new voice for the people in your group. And I remember one time that I was taking a walking tour in Santiago, Chile. I had her wear the Bluetooth microphone. It was working really well. And then all of a sudden, my microphone died. It ran out of battery. And it was incredible the difference in accessibility. Suddenly, the tour became inaccessible for me. The tour leader was pretty soft spoken. And even though she had a microphone, like it wasn't working for me. So after that, I was like, okay, this microphone is essential. And it was really frustrating to me that it died. But, that just goes to show how important amplifying volume is. Sometimes tour groups are really big. So I really appreciate what a tour company did in Athens, Greece, which is they knew that so many people were going to show up for this free walking tour. And they provided 2 tour guides and they split the groups up. When I know that a group is going to be split up, what I do is I go and talk to each of the guides and I figure out who's nicer and whose voice can I understand better. And sometimes they're not the same person. So I hope that they are the same person. But yeah, I had an experience where one tour guide was not very nice and not very welcoming. So I just went with the other one. So that gives me a choice. And it also makes the group more manageable. What always happens for me is that I take longer to navigate to the next stopping point. So I'm kind of at the back of the group. But then when the tour guide starts talking, I need to be at the front. So I'm constantly managing back, front, and it's stressful. I hope that this video is helpful for anyone that is a tour guide and is watching this. I hope that you see that there are easy ways for you to increase the accessibility of your tours. A lot of these ways are simple. They're not high tech. They're about communicating. They're about providing flexibility. And so now I want to hear from you in the comments. What has been your favorite guided tour and why? Was there any accessibility best practice that I didn't talk about that you would like to add? I'd love to hear from you. Stick around and keep watching my videos on accessible travel. See you next time.